Hello and welcome to another edition of Veterans to Success, the podcast where I get to speak to seemingly ordinary people who tell extraordinary stories and have extraordinary experiences. Today, I'm going to spend a one-to-one with you and get personal, because what I want to do is share with you something that's become an interesting tradition for Americans. It's Independence Day, the 4th of July. Today, though, is Independence Day in so many other ways, because you know what? I'm not going to give you a history lesson or politics or anything like this. I've just finished hosting a Transformer business network event. And, you know, I was talking about, it was my opportunity to share what I've done during the last few years and the journey I've been on since I've formed the Transformer brand. And Veterans to Success is one aspect of that, where I get to interview some fabulous people who tell their story. And today I want to give you some of my tips on how to gain independence, because if we look back to 1776, right, this was a Declaration of Independence, the founding document of the United States, right? And I'm not going to give you the history on America. I just want to say that at that time, it was approved by the Continental Congress and announced the separation of 13 American British colonies from Great Britain. So that was their marker in the stone. And brings me up to date, right, with the 4th of July 2024, and a lot is going on in Great Britain. A lot is also going on in Europe, America, Russia, and China. And you know what? When I was in the military, my job was to serve Queen and Country, and it's now King and Country if you join more recently. And the job was to make sure that our sovereignty, our country, was kept safe. And at the time, in the 1980s, the Cold War was going on, and we've got a bit of a repeat of that. And, you know, when these politicians and people say lessons will be learned, and I've discovered that not really. Lessons haven't been learned. We just keep doing the same stuff, different day. And as I said, I don't want this podcast to be a party political broadcast, because goodness knows we've had enough and heard enough about them. And you know, now is your big chance today to vote whichever way you feel necessary to find and put a government in place that you think can do the job for the next 4 or 5 years. And neither do I want to give you a history lesson, or in fact a geography lesson on where America is, where China is, where Russia is, where Ukraine is, where Europe is, or anywhere else in the world for that matter. What I want to do is share with you knowledge and experience so you can make your life a lot easier. Right. So talking about knowledge and sharing, yesterday I spent time with a bunch of school students at a Manchester college, and I was delivering a presentation about money management. Now, you may or may not know that I've been a professional financial advisor for the last 36 years, or in fact more than that, actually all that time after leaving the military. And then I joined back up as Territorial Army or reservist. But I was delivering a presentation yesterday about money management and how important their choices are. And we were looking at, because there's 7 modules that I do with, I'm an ambassador for education and an education ambassador for the Personal Finance Society, which is the professional body for financial advisors. But our give back is they've created over the last years, because I was one of the first volunteers for them, because it's a voluntary role. I was one of the first volunteers back before the pandemic, way back before the pandemic, setting up these modules. And there were only 4 to start with. Now there's 7. And it's now been recognised by the Duke of Edinburgh's Award. So if you know of schools or school children that you would like educated by this, feel free to drop me a line. And when I was talking to them about how important the decisions they make for the rest of their lives is, and why they should listen to this presentation and become active and interactive, because I involved them. There were lots of exercises during it. There were questions. Some of the students got more involved than others. What I did like, though, is they all listened. And I even got a round of applause at the end. Now, I don't know whether that was a round of applause to say, oh, thank goodness he's finished, or actually they did take a lot in. But I did ask a few students for feedback, and they said it was really enjoyable. It was brilliant. And there's also a QR code for them to go to a website and give feedback, which I'll get to hear about shortly, probably by the end of the week. But today I want to share some time with you, imparting some of the knowledge that I gained over the years, the wisdom, education, skills, and if there's one thing that you take away from this episode today, I'll be really happy. So what I've done is I've put together the 7 most important stages, in my opinion, to achieving your independence, whether that be financial independence, independence from a situation you're in, independence with financial freedom, independence with accommodation, paying off debts, whatever it is, this can help. It might be independence as in being independent to start new relationships, whatever it is. These 7 steps will help you get there. Now, the first step, I believe, is probably one of the most important of the 7. All of them are important, and it could be argued that they're equally important. The fact is, this one gets you on the road to success and appreciating and understanding what success looks like to you. And here's the thing about success to you. Beware of the dream stealers. You know, these people who tell you you can't do something, or you can do something, or whatever, and it holds you back from actually doing what you want, right? Well, beware of those people, and in fact, change your network if you need be, and we'll come on to that. But the first big one, and with this, you can really start to get where you want to be. Without it, you'll just keep going from pillar to post, not knowing any direction. The first one is set clear goals. Now, you've probably heard of the SMART goals. I'm going to come on to them a little bit more in a minute. You've probably heard about the SMART goals. Well, I've got smarter goals, right? Once you've got your goals, then prioritize. And I'm going to come to each one of these in more depth. The second point is really important too, because with this, right, you can be totally assured of where you're going. And without it, you'll doubt yourself maybe and not be quite sure what to do, who to communicate with. And that's develop self-reliance and confidence. In fact, I did a workshop yesterday. In fact, yesterday was a busy day for me with a team. It was a team building because the CEO was introduced to me and he said, look, Joe, I need my team building. They're not functioning right. And we drilled down to what was important and what was stopping them. And it was all about confidence, communication, and congruence in the message, you know, being able to trust each other and be vulnerable to each other. And by the end of the first session, we've got 4 more to go yet. By the end of the first session, for 4 hours, we really drilled down into how they feel about each other. And do you know what? They felt really great about each other. It's just that because of the lack of communication, clear communication, they weren't able to demonstrate that, if that makes sense. Right. So the third point, with this, you'll be able to do whatever you want in business because you'll have the connections to do it. And without it, then you'll just continue maybe to sit in the room that you're in, not know who to speak to, and maybe not get your message out there. Because this next point is build a good support network. And I was mentioning that I've just finished a network meeting this morning that I run. It's called the Transformer Business Network. And you know what? I was asking for feedback, and there were ex-military guys there, as well as really successful business entrepreneurs. And by the way, you can be ex-military and a really successful business entrepreneur. It's not one or the other. In fact, I know some very successful business entrepreneurs who are ex-military. But anyway, I always ask for feedback, because feedback is the food of champions, right? And they were saying, look, Joe, since we joined this network, we just love it. There's so much clarity. It's enabled me to open doors and get opportunities that I wouldn't have even dreamed of before I joined this network. So you know what? That was brilliant, because I didn't want necessarily, in fact, I didn't want at all smoke blowing up my jacksie. What I wanted to know was how good it was to helping them, if that makes sense. So the feedback was absolutely fabulous. And this next point, the fourth point, is really important, right? Because without this, then you're not able to get your message out there. But with it, it means that you can really get your message out there to individuals, whether it be on a one-to-one, one-to-many, one-to-lots and lots of people, in a clear, concise, and congruent way. The penultimate message is create your own continuous professional development program. And what do we mean by this? Well, you know, if you don't know what you're doing, and you don't educate yourself in what you're doing, then you won't grow as an individual, as a business person. It just won't happen. And then, so that's creating your own continuous professional development program is really important. And then the next point with this, right, you can really get down to understand what makes you tick, how to process information effectively, and also looking at how you perform best. Without this, you won't learn any lessons from your failures, because this is all about, this point is setting aside time to reflect on your successes, failures, and how you can develop. And then the final point is just to be yourself. Be yourself. So what do I mean by this? Well, being yourself is important, because when you're yourself, you're not wanting to be anyone else. It's great. I get it. It's great to have heroes, right? It is absolutely great to have heroes. The thing is, too many people on TikTok now, on Instagram, on all these social medias, Photoshop themselves, say that they're really brilliant at what they do, and actually they wanted to be someone else. Be yourself, because everybody else is taken. Right, so we'll come back to that. So they're the 7 most important stages to achieving your independence, and we're going to delve into them a little bit deeper now going forward. So what I'd like to do at this stage, though, is, because I've looked at these strategies and I live, breathe, eat them, sleep them totally. And what I want to do with today in this episode is share with you something that I've introduced, because my message, my mission is to help 1 million business owner, entrepreneurs, and veterans achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations they deserve. And I thought about it for a long time. How can I do this? How can I get this message out there to help me achieve the mission? So what I did is I looked at what other people are doing, because there's no need to reinvent the wheel. The wheel has already been invented. All you got to do is make it more efficient, make it slicker, make it faster, more streamlined, just make it perform better than any other wheel. So what I did is I created joeteams.com. So what is joeteams.com? Well, it's a central hub where you can go, and for less than the price of a cup of coffee per month, you get access to lots of resources I've developed over the years, like, for instance, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, which was a magnificent seminar that I did online, right, with a good friend of mine who set up all of the equipment during lockdown. He had a stage, he had 2 big massive screens, and filmed it, and I had 10 speakers all together under COVID rules, and we presented this on all sorts of different business subjects, right? And joeteams.com, you go there, and you know, there's no hidden agenda here. It's £5 a month, right? It's £5 a month. As I said, less than the price of a big cup of coffee, and you get access to all of the information, the Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, as well as lots of other stuff like blogs, video blogs, the lot. Well, I also created, and on joeteams.com you'll find this, the Pathfinder, right? Now the Pathfinder, as the title implies, it's the Pathfinder Ultimate Success System. It's based on my military experience, but also my business experience as well, because why I created this is at Christmas time, I get fed up with celebrities bringing out journals. Now, I'm not saying that they're all rubbish. That's not what I'm saying. What I was more referring to is there was a couple in particular that I looked at that were from celebrities who were well known. And it was, make this your best year, or this is your year, this is the success journal. And I opened it and it was just full of blank pages. And every now and again, there was a motivational statement or a phrase from Steve Jobs or the Dalai Lama or Richard Branson, or Alan Sugar, some celebrity who made it big. Now, I thought, well, that's great if you can do journals, right? If you're a prolific journaler and you love taking notes down, it helps you with your success. That's great. For some people, and I'm one of those, I need what we call in the military an idiot's guide. I want something to tell me what I have to do, because if you do this, this will happen, and if you do this, this will happen, and when this happens, you get even more success, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of success. So I wanted to create an idiot's guide, which is a bit of an unfair title actually, but a helpful guide to help you get better results. And it's taken me 7 years to write it. I finished it off in lockdown, and it's going to publication shortly. And taking my military experience, I called it the reconnaissance. There's 3 parts to it, 3 parts of the program, and they are workbooks. If you don't like working to get your success, if you want to be successful overnight and be a multimillionaire in 7 days, then this isn't for you, right? Don't even bother. It's not for you, because I can tell you, to be an overnight success takes roughly about 7 years, I'd say. Right, unless you do something that goes viral, like these TikTok people who haven't even reached puberty yet, in my opinion, and they just go viral, and people are listening to them. But if you want to have something self-sustaining, which will continue and can provide you with a good lifestyle, then you need to take on things progressively. So the reconnaissance, right, is the first part of the journal, where you get to find out about how your mind works, and it's a real easy read. The second part of the journal is the strategic advance, and it's the battle. It's the battle plan, how to win, right? And it gives you loads of exercises on how, like, for instance, your life compass, what other people might call the wheel of life. But it looks at various parts of spirituality, your career, wealth, how you handle relationships, how you handle money, how you handle all sorts of things, career, vocation, and it allows you to mark yourself out of 10, and it really deep dives, and there's lots of chapters that look at different areas. So by the end of that, you know exactly what your mission is, what you want to accomplish in life, how you're going to do it, what your limitations are, what your successes are, and also the types of things you should do to change your network. So, because it's no good hanging around with people who are holding you back, right? If you're the smartest person in the room, change rooms. Get in a room, metaphorically speaking, just hang around, knock about with people who are smarter than you, because that's where you're going to generate more knowledge, information, and skills. And then the tail end, Charlie, is the third part of the journey, where then you start to record your successes, your transformational goals, what you did well, what you did not so well, and what can be improved and how you can do it better next time. And these are followed by quarterly and annual reviews. And if you really want a deep dive, I run a program which is monthly, where I help you get the most of the program, and you get to mix with a peer group of like-minded individuals who want to achieve success beyond their wildest dreams. Okay, so let's get back to the important stages to achieving independence. Right, so you remember I mentioned that setting clear goals and then prioritize your goals. Right, what I mean by prioritize is once you've set your goals, there may be one goal which is more important than the other. So once you've set the goals, put them in order. Like earning enough money to live would be a pretty important goal, and that would probably be number one. Then maybe looking after your health would be number two, anything health related. Although I think that if you're not well, it's not good having money, but that's a different conversation. But whatever you prioritize. So we look at the smarter system rather than the smart system, and I'll explain what the last A is. Right. So you've probably heard of the SMART goals, and they are specific, i.e. what you want, drill down to exactly what you want, when you want it, how you want it, who will benefit, right? So be specific, right? So a great specific goal, instead of just saying, I want to lose weight, or I don't want to be broke. By the way, there's no good at using don't, because the mind doesn't process don't. So think about what you do want, right? Rather than what you don't want. So I want to be wealthy, or I want to be really well. Well, then say what you're going to do that, to achieve that, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, who you need to be with, right? Then the next one is measurable, right? So staying on the aspect of health, if you wanted to lose weight, well, then a great place to start would be to weigh yourself, right? So set your target of your target weight. Well, the fact is, when you weigh yourself first, then you can monitor and assess how much overweight you are using charts that you can get on Google, height and weight charts, and for a healthy weight, right? So you start with how heavy you are, then you measurable, i.e. what you want to get to, but you've weighed yourself so you know where you're starting from, right? And then as you go along, you keep monitoring it. By the way, becoming obsessive, i.e. weighing yourself 3 or 4 times a day, isn't helpful, because you're not going to lose much weight in a day unless you just stop drinking water, which isn't healthy, by the way, because you should be having 2 liters of water per day, really. So 2 liters of water, what does that mean? Well, that's about 4 glasses of water, big glasses that hold roughly a pint, right? So you made that measurable, then also attainable. Now, this is an interesting one. You could call it achievable as well. If you're hanging around with dream stealers, they'll tell you that it's not attainable anyway, right? Which isn't very helpful, right? Because it's not attainable, by the way, not because it's not attainable by you, it's not attainable by them, or at least in their mind. So stay away from the dream stealers. That's number one. You've got to stay away from the dream stealers. And then you decide how attainable it is for you. And, so long as you're not defying gravity and you're not doing anything illegal, because you probably end up in jail for that, then most things are attainable. You want to lose weight, you want to make more money, you want to get better friends, you want to get in a better relationship, you want to have more time, you want to have a better job, or you want to have a better business. It's all attainable with the correct structure. Then relevant, i.e. relevant to you. So is it relatable? If if one of the dream stealers came up and said, all right, well, to do that, you need to be in a religious cult or a cult or whatever, well, then that's probably not relevant to you. If you want to set up a really successful business, it might be relevant to them. So a business goal would be relevant to you. Make it personal, make it your goal, not someone else's. And it may be a personal goal as well. Just make it specific to you, measurable to you, attainable to you, and relevant, right? Then we've got, of course, the next one, which is time-bound. Time-bound means that you set a date when you want to achieve it. And then you set milestones from where you are now to the actual goal date. You set milestones to where you think you need to be at various points along the journey. Then the next point, the sixth one, the extra A I put on the end of the SMART goals, guess what that is? Well, apart from the fact there's no such thing as a stupid question, that was a stupid question, because you wouldn't be able to guess what it is, because it's my strategy that I've created. So what it is attitude. Yes, attitude. And you've probably never thought about that before now, but attitude determines your success in life and business, whether that be in relationships, your relationship with money, your relationship with people, your relationship with life generally. Because how you are perceived and how you project yourself and what you think internally is all about attitude, right? Having the correct attitude, when someone walks in a room and everyone goes quiet and stop talking, what sort of impact do you think that person that's walked in the room has had on them? Right. They're either quiet because they don't like the person, they were quiet because maybe they were talking about the person, or they're just quiet because of out of reverence and respect. But the fact is that whatever it is, that person is coming, it might be because they're coming with a really sad-looking face, they're angry, and everybody just thinks, oh no, not again. Right? That's attitude, and attitude can be expressed physiologically, i.e. the way you look, the way you smile, the way you present yourself, whether you've got stooped shoulders or you're standing up straight and smiling, or because that has a big effect on the way people think about you and perceive you. And what happens if someone walks in the room and everyone who was looking a bit glum before and it was silent, all of a sudden perks up, gets really enthusiastic and start talking with each other? Right. That was all because the person who came in had the correct attitude. So your attitude, right, will determine what your day is like. Does that make sense? Fabulous. Okay, now you remember that I mentioned about develop self-reliance and confidence. And this is about problem solving and commitment, right? So staying on the subject of goals, set the tasks and create a timeline when they need to be completed by, right? And you know, when you start off to get in the habit of setting tasks, make them fairly easy to start with, because then what you do is you're giving yourself a pat on the back each time you achieve the goal, right? And then that starts to gain momentum. Once you start gaining momentum and you recognize that, wow, I can do this. And you know what? I'm talking about set a task like opening a letter. You know, if like me, I remember when I used to dread letters falling on the in the hallway after being delivered, because I knew pretty much, I had a good idea that the amount of good letters I get from someone asking me how I am and giving me some great information were very seldom, whereas I was getting quite a few letters saying, you need to pay this debt. If you do not pay this, we're going to send the bailiffs round. This is your final warning and all that. So I've been there, right? And I've felt the pain. So it could be a task would be opening up your letters as soon as they come through. That'd be the first one. And then you find that the next task might be dealing with it straight away. Dealing with it wherever it is, because then what you do is you start to get great letters. Like I get fantastic letters now saying how I've helped someone change their life, or you know, a bank statement doesn't mean what it used to mean to me, seeing that I was working for the bank rather than the bank working for me. And in fact, that was something that the bank manager said to me back in the 90s. He said, Mr. O'Connor, I'd like to remind you that you bank with us, we don't bank with you, which I thought wasn't that helpful, but hey. So once you've got into the habit of setting tasks and achieving them, then you can start to stretch yourself, because you've already set your goals now, and you've set the time scales, which are going to test you, right? And as you get into the swing of things and start to achieve the goals, tasks, the things that you've set, guess what? Your confidence will start to grow, and it'll grow exponentially. And the more you do, the better you will feel. Does that make sense? Fabulous. Right. This next point is brilliant, and I've been through all these at the beginning, but I just want to get down and remind you again. Build a good support network. I was telling you when we started that I just finished Transformer Business Network meeting with some great entrepreneurs and great veteran entrepreneurs as well, which I call vetrepreneur, by the way, which is a term I like to use. Well, because the power of networking, right? Just the same as the mastermind programs that I run, there was a guy who was talking about networking many moons ago in a book, How to Make Friends and Influence People, and Dale Carnegie has talked about the power of networking and the power of multiple people getting together. Right. When you have a conversation with yourself, there's only one person having a conversation. So if you're dwelling on your problems and you want to overcome a problem, then you're only using one mind. It's going to be pretty difficult. Right. When you get two people together, if you put two people, one in each room, and gave them a problem, they've still only got one mind working on it. When you put them together, say, solve this problem, they've not just got two minds working on it anymore. There are multiple minds. There are at least three. Because as they talk to each other, they'll say, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, yeah, that makes me think about this. And oh, what if we did this? And then they talk to each other and come up with multiple ideas. When you increase the number of people in the network or the problem-solving group to 3, 4, 5, it starts to grow exponentially. And then you've got thousands of minds in the same place. And I believe that networking is the 8th wonder of the world. And when I was in the military, we had the greatest network possible, because we'd have the O group, we'd have a debrief, we'd have all sorts of things. We'd have the all group order session, and we'd work as a team. And you know, if we came up against a problem, right, there was no problem greater than the solution, if that makes sense. And with a network, you've got the power of 7, which means that you can get to pretty much anyone in the world with your network by contacting 7 people. Right. So you contact someone you know, they contact someone they know, they contact someone they know. So within 7, you can get to anyone in the world. And nowadays with social media, it is even less. You can get to someone in much fewer stages than 7 now. I mean, I can get to royalty in 1, maybe 2 contacts, right? Which is pretty quick. Now, when I left the military, there was not a chance. I couldn't do that, but I built my network over 36 years. So I've got quite a few people in my network that I know. And remember, team stands for together, everyone achieves more. But I take a different stance on this, because together everyone achieves more, you've probably heard, or you may not have. But what about changing the last 2 words to team stands for together, everyone's attitude matters. Together, everyone's attitude matters. Because if you have a good attitude to someone else, and you see, being bad to people doesn't work in my eyes, because all it means is it breeds badness. And you can see enough of that going on. I said about China, Russia, and what's going on with the poor Ukrainians, of which I'm in touch with quite a few on LinkedIn. And at the end of the day, back in the day when I was in the military, if I met a Russian, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, there was only got one way it was going to end, and it didn't look good for the Russian. If I met that same type of Russian now, I would just say, what was all that about, mate? Let's have a drink together. Let's have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, or maybe a beer. I don't drink that much, but maybe a shandy. But the point is that badness doesn't fuel anything but badness. When you've got a great attitude to success, that makes all the difference. The next point, if you remember, I was talking about learning effective communication skills. Be clear, concise, and congruent. Clear in what your message is. Concise, keep it simple and to the point. And congruent, really believe in it. You know, it's no good saying, oh, well, I'd like to do this because I think it's a bit great. No, my mission statement is clear, concise, and congruent. It means I believe in it. Like my mission is to help 1 million veterans and business owner entrepreneurs collaborate so they can achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations they deserve. That's quite clear, right? So looking back at my military days, right, radio voice procedure was very important. For instance, if we wanted to give our location or we wanted the artillery to put fire down, we had to be pretty clear, concise with where we wanted the supplies or where we wanted the firepower to end up. Because if it was in the wrong place, that could put our lives at risk, which wouldn't have been a good day at the office. Right, concise to the point, right? Just make it to the point. Don't go off on it. Mind you, there's no rambling. Some people are more concise than others. I get that. And if you're a bit creative, you would like to be more demonstrate the point a little bit more by maybe being a bit more flowery. Be careful and be mindful of the type of person you're speaking to, because if you're flowery to someone who's not flowery, then that might not be as effective. And then if you're concise to someone who's not concise and is flowery, that might not be effective as well. So understanding who you're communicating with and to really helps. And then finally, I did mention congruent. Talk about the most important communication in your life, right? My communication, I'm congruent because I really want to achieve the goal to help others, right? Okay, so this next point now I said is really important. In fact, they're all really important. But with this, you can be really clear on what you want to achieve, and without it, you'll just keep going from pillar to post. So it's decide, consider, action. So create your own continuous professional development program. What do I mean by this? Well, so decide what you want to achieve, right? And once you've decided it, then consider the gaps in your knowledge. Because I can bet you £1 to a pinch of salt that, and I don't know where that comes from, by the way. I know my mum used to say it to me years ago. On £1 to a penny as well, £1 to a penny. The gaps in your knowledge are really important to fill. And I'm not saying that you need to learn everything about everything. It might be that when you're creating your network, you discover someone is really good at doing what you cannot do. So what's the point of educating yourself, taking the time to educate yourself when it's easy? You could collaborate and problem solve. The same as in the engineers. I remember we were moving forward in the battle group and there was a bridge needed. Now, if we had built the bridge with no cover, there was a chance that we would have lost members of our team because we're carrying bridge parts with carrying handles rather than carrying weapons, so we can't defend ourselves. So what was organised was the infantry came in, dug a bridgehead in, i.e. trenches where they got in, gave covering fire. The artillery was the rear, just in case the enemy wanted to advance to the riverside and started to the riverbank and started to take us out. And then we had special forces on the high ground watching what was going on. And we built that bridge without incident. The enemy were held back. The bridge was built, battle group moved on. We picked up the bridge and then we carried on to the next task, minefields, water supplies. And each time the infantry were defending us while we could do our job. Now in business, that's what I mean. I mean that you don't need to be the infantry, artillery, special forces, Royal Engineers, the medics, catering corps, which doesn't exist anymore, but the people who do the rations. You don't need to be that. You need to have a network that can give you that as well. So, and at the start, you may not be able to do that. So it's about setting up your continuous professional development program to cover the gaps in your knowledge, so at least you can be good enough. You don't have to be perfect, but good enough to cover what your clients need and what your network need. And then action, I talked about, was action your needs, right? Your gaps in knowledge by setting a date to study, right? Set the start date to study, and then guess what? The most phenomenal 3 words you can have. And guess what it is? Then just do it. Then wasn't part of the 3 words, by the way. Just do it was the 3 words, right? Because when you set the date and then just do it, then you'll find that it's the same as doing tasks. Once you get into the swing of things, your confidence builds, your momentum grows, and then you just start creating success after success after success. Right. The penultimate one, set aside time to reflect on your successes. And guess what? Your failures too. Because I've learned more from my failures than I ever did from success. Because failure hurts. I know when I'm investing my clients' money or looking at inheritance tax strategies and how to save tax, right? The failures, I learned a lot more from my personal failures when I didn't get it right than the successes, right? So, and then you look at how you can develop, because when I'm developing my clients' portfolios, I'm looking at what's not worked in the past by looking at case studies, not particularly from mistakes I've made. I look at from my continuous professional development and my study and experience in the gain and wisdom, skills, knowledge. I look at case studies that help me to look at how that fits in with my clients so I can save them tax, save them time, increase their value, make sure that all the assets go to the people that they love. And we look at wills and estate planning too. So that is what I love doing. Right. Once you've set time aside each time for you, your you time, right? Consider the learnings, discoveries, and questions you gain from the successes of the day, week, and month, and also the failures of the day, week, or month. Because by looking at that, the trials, tribulations, the challenges, the successes, that will all come down and write it down. I'm a prolific writer. And in fact, in business, especially with clients on financial matters, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. So if you're writing it all down, then it helps and you've got something to review then. Like for this podcast today episode, I went through a whole load of notes and I wrote down my ideas. And now when I'm doing it, I'm just looking at my notes every now and again in case you're wondering, if you're watching this video, in case you're wondering why I'm not engaging with you with my eyes all the time, it's because I might be looking at my notes to make sure that I'm covering everything so I can offer you value, right? So once you've considered the learnings, discoveries, and questions, right? Consider them to help you gain the knowledge so you know what to do to get a better result next time, right? And then the critical analysis of the whole process of setting aside time for yourself is just about encouraging yourself on your journey to success, your success. And it should be used to complement your personal growth, personal and business growth. So finally, the biggest one of all, be yourself. Just be yourself, because everyone else is taken. And you know, if during this podcast, if I've said or I've maybe paused too long or too short, then this is the way the podcast is going on, because I want you to be in contact with me, not with someone who's photoshopped, not with someone who's had an audio edit and they've made me sound perfect and taken out. No, you get the podcast as it's recorded. Right, so be yourself. It's really important. And that doesn't mean to say be your worst self. I'm talking about be your best self. So when you turn up on time, or in fact 5 minutes before time. Be smart. be ready for the job, whatever it is, whether it's the job being to be on your first date with someone, whether that be in a personal relationship or a business relationship. Be the best you can. Push it, put your best foot forward. You've probably heard that. You may not have. What that means is just always being on point and ready to be the best that you can be. Because you know what? And I'm not saying that being the best one day is as good as being the best on another, or it is worse than the best on another day, because I get it. Stuff happens in life, doesn't it? And you may have something that's making you feel a little bit sad on one day, and then something else happens and makes you feel really happy. So you will get different results on each day. One result when you're not feeling so good might not be as good as when you're feeling 100%. So long as you're doing your best in each scenario, no one can ask any more. I say to my sons, right, and I often have conversations with my wife, who I think is absolutely brilliant, and my sons are fantastic. They're on their own journey. I just say to them, did you do your best? Did you give it your best shot? Everything that you had on that day, did you, nothing left on the table? Did you put it all out there? And if they say, yeah, that's great. And if they say, no, well, we have a chat and have a look how they can do it better next time. So going back to joeteams.com, and by the way, those 7 points to gaining your independence, financial, relationship, whatever it is, spiritual, vocational, career-wise, gaining your independence is really important. And I really do wish that those 7 tips have helped you. And I mentioned that the Pathfinder, right? The Pathfinder took me 7 years to write, and I finished it during lockdown because I used those 7 independence strategies that I've just gone through with you. And I use them on a daily basis, because guess what? Every day wasn't a great day, was it? I don't know if you can remember, but in lockdown, there were times we couldn't talk to anyone. We felt alone. We were on our own, you know, and it was really difficult, right? I get it. So I put all my energies into the Pathfinder and finishing that. And why did I do it? Well, as I mentioned, right, I may have mentioned that I got fed up with celebrities using Christmas to release their books. And it didn't gel with me. And I wanted to make sure that I delivered something that was easier to understand, where I could guarantee, more or less guarantee results. And by the way, when you invest in it, and if you invest in it, if it doesn't work for you after 12 months, I give you a no quibble refund, because I just know that it'll work. Oh, and you've got to use it though. There's no good sending back an empty workbook, because then you've not even done it. And I've done it as well. You know, I've got, I used to have the most educated bookshelf or library in the world, and now I don't, because I love reading, when it's audio books or actual the written word. So how does it work? Well, it guides you through unique, simple and effective success systems to help you get from where you are now, which might be stuck, not in getting the best out of life, maybe not financially where you are. It could be that you're not in the relationship that you want, many, many things, or maybe your health needs to improve, or you need spirituality. I'm not talking necessarily about religion. I'm just talking about being yourself and being able to meditate and understand how things work. And then to get you where you want to be, which could be financially free, in the best relationship you could have ever, and a business that you want to be, which is making lots of money and employing people, or maybe just employing you, and you feel totally at ease with yourself, and you know to be yourself, because everyone else is taken, and you just feel great. So from get to where you are now, which might not be that, to where you want to be, is firing on all cylinders. And guess what? If you might say, oh, well, I'm not interested in that, so yeah, well, I get that. And if that's the case, that's totally fine by me. All I want to do is just keep giving and learn and helping people discover their independence and get even better results. So if you don't do it, you might just stay stuck where you are, which is not performing at your best and not gaining the independence and financial freedom you want, or relationship freedom. So that's okay if you want to stay there. If you don't know, because my mission is to help 1 million veteran entrepreneurs and business entrepreneurs and veterans themselves achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations they deserve, then doing this, I've made it really easy for you. You just need to visit joeteams.com now to find out how you can change your life for the better. And here you can find out more about the Pathfinder Ultimate Success System, the Transformer Business Network that I talked about, the Mastermind and Beyond program, which is to get you in business where you want to be, firing on all cylinders, and then the Veterans to Success podcast, which you're listening to now, and much, much more, because my mission is, as I've said, you know what my mission is by now. Transformation for Veterans is a charity I help and support, and the mission for that charity is to build a facility for veterans and their family, whether it be wives, husbands, children, to come along to go and get better results. Because I've seen veterans who come home and say, after they've been away on a healing course or a betterment course or a life fulfillment course or a stress counseling, they come back after a few weeks or maybe a bit longer and say, honey, I'm home, I feel really good now. And the husband or wife and the kids think, well, that's all right for you, mate, but what about us? We're still in the same place. And then what happens, because water always finds its own level, metaphor, then the veteran comes back down to their level, and all the good work that was done is lost. Now, the services and facilities that will be offered at the place that we're looking to build is where the veterans bring their families along, so they all come together, whether that be courses on how to run business, whether it's just help, support and guidance for the families and the children and the wives, husbands, girlfriends, boyfriends, you know, bring the whole unit together, the family unit, so they can get even better results. So that's it from me for today. I've really enjoyed doing this podcast episode for you, and we've had a great one-to-one together. And yeah, remember, joeteams.com is where you can find out much more about how I can help you and my mission to do better in the world and help you. Thank you, and until we meet again, have a brilliant day.